A couple months ago, I put myself up to the challenge of reading a mixed media murder mystery book and trying to solve the case before the reveal. For my next challenge, I wanted to try a more classic murder mystery, and a lot of you recommended giving this one a try, so today I'm going to be trying to solve the murder of Roger Ackroyd. I have started the Murder of Roger Ackroyd. I am 28 pages in, and this book is going to take me longer to get through than I thought it would. I thought this was just going to be sit down, read it all in one quick go. It looked like a short little story, but the text is very, very small. Just the font size is very small, so it is deceptively longer than it seems. But I'm really engaged in the story so far, so that's going good. I haven't read an Agatha Christie book in a really long time, so I couldn't remember what her writing style was like and if it was gonna feel like old and slow and boring, or if I'd be more interested in it, and I am more interested in it, so that is going good. I've been taking vigorous notes as I have been reading, so I can get you up to speed with the initial setup of this book as the first mystery is being developed. This is a Hercule Poirot book, and I don't know if I've read a Hercule Poirot mystery before or if this is my first one. I've definitely seen the movie adaptations that they've done for Hercule Poirot mysteries. I feel like I read Murder on the Orient Express, but I could be making that up. I'm not sure. The only book I know I've read for certain from Agatha Christie is And Then There Were None. Other than that, I'm not sure. But I was surprised to find that the story begins not in the perspective of Hercule Poirot, but of a doctor named Dr. James Shepherd. The story begins with the death of a woman named Miss Ferris. She died on the night of the 16th of September, and Dr. James Shepherd gets called over to examine her body. He has a sister, Caroline, and Caroline is the town gossip, and so she has all this information all the time. And Dr. Shepherd is the doctor. It's a small town. Everyone knows everyone, and everyone knows everyone's business. It looks like Miss Ferrars has died of an overdose of a sleeping medication that she's been taking. Was it intentional or not? We do not know. But some of the context around her is that her husband also died just over a year ago, and Dr. Shepherd's sister Caroline has constantly asserted since then that his wife poisoned him. Dr. Shepherd doesn't know if that's true or not, but that's what Caroline is very convinced of. Now, there are so many characters that have been introduced and such a complex map that I have been drawing out of how all these characters are related, but it all kind of centers around this guy, Roger Ackroyd, which is no surprise because he is the title character. Roger was apparently having a romance with Miss Ferrars. She needed to get through her year of grieving her husband though, so it seems like they are maybe secretly engaged. Roger had a wife whose last name was Patton, and she died of drinking a long time ago. They weren't married for very long. She had a young son at the time when Roger married her, and so he's kind of raised that son as his own. That son is named Ralph, and he is now 25 years old. There are also rumors that Ralph is now engaged to Roger's niece, Flora Ackroyd. Now, they would not be related by blood because, like I said, Ralph was the woman's son already before she married Ralph. We know Roger has a younger brother who was married to Miss Cecil Ackroyd. The younger brother is now dead, so Miss Cecil Ackroyd is a widow. Roger has a housekeeper named Miss Russell. She has been having some alleged knee problems. And he has a friend named Hector, who is known as the Game Man. He is a big hunter. Roger also has a man who works in his house who I think is named Peter. I can't fully remember. And then the way that Hercule Poirot comes into the story is he is Dr. James Shepherd's new neighbor, who is very mysterious. No one can seem to figure out anything about him other than that he's growing vegetables, and they have mistakenly named him Mr. Poirot, and he's just going with it because he wants to be incognito. Now, like I said, I haven't read Hercule Poirot mystery, so I don't know where this falls in his lore and where he's at in his story, but he has since lost his friend and he is living in this town trying to be incognito, giving up the detective gig, it seems, for a bit, but I suspect he's about to get pulled into this entire mystery because now Roger has been found dead. Dr. Shepherd was friends with Roger Ackroyd. After Miss Ferrars died, Roger invited Dr. Shepherd to come have dinner at his place, and Roger was clearly suspicious. He's like, I feel like people have been watching me and talking to me, and I'm like going through this whole thing and I have to tell you this confession I have to tell you. So they go into his office, make sure all the windows are closed, no one's there, the door's closed, and Roger tells Dr. Shepherd that Miss Ferrars was secretly engaged to him, and she had just confessed to him the day prior that she did in fact kill her husband and poison him. She said she has been being blackmailed by someone, and that's really been weighing on her, but he did not know who was blackmailing her. Dr. Shepard also recalls that the day before he saw Ralph with Miss Ferrars talking intimately, so perhaps Ralph knows something. Caroline also saw Ralph talking to some mysterious girl in the woods about how he really wants to get Roger's money from him and make sure that the will is unchanged, because right now he's supposed to be getting the money. Roger's apparently rich, and he is nervous about some kind of situation that he's trying to like scheme and work through. But back to Roger and Dr. Shepard. After he told Dr. Shepard this whole situation, she confessed to poisoning her husband. He's now worried that she killed herself after that was weighing on her. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't, maybe it was murder. I don't know yet. But he also thinks that she is going to leave him a note of some sort, giving some kind of indication of what has happened. And then suddenly letters arrive, and it turns out she did send him a letter in the mail and had it post to arrive now. And in the letter, I believe she confesses who was blackmailing her, but he does not want to share that with Dr. Shepard. He's like, I need to read this alone in my own time. So Dr. Shepard leaves. Specifically, to get the timeline of the evening, Dr. Shepard left at 9 o'clock. At 9:30, one of Roger's friends, Raymond, who was still at the house, said he heard Roger talking to someone. And at 9:45, it seems like Flora, who is the niece, saw Roger, and then she told the housekeeper not to disturb him. Parker is the other guy's name who works at the house, not Peter. I was close. So Shepard is the last one who for sure saw Roger alive. Raymond thinks he heard him talking at 9:30, and Flora may have gone and seen him as well. But it seems like Parker may be up to something too. He seems a little bit suspicious in the whole circumstance. After that, Dr. Shepard gets home later in the evening. He gets a call from who it says is Parker, the housekeeper guy, and says that Roger is dead and he needs to come over there. So Dr. Shepard goes over to Roger's house, and then Parker's like, I didn't call you, what are you talking about? And they go in the study and they do find that Roger is dead. He has locked himself in the study and he is dead. And now the window is open again. And Dr. Shepard knows that he closed and locked the window because Roger didn't want anyone to hear them talking. So it seems like someone came to visit Roger, perhaps through the window. It seems like he let them in, someone he trusted, and then they ended up killing him by stabbing him in the neck from behind, it says. That's about all the information I have so far on page 28. That's a lot of information to get in 28 pages. Lots of characters, lots of context, lots of information. I have a lot of suspects. It seems like all of this is revolving around the fact that Roger has a lot of money. That seems to be something that people want. Also, a lot of people around Roger have died, and Ralph in particular has already made himself look super suspicious, which could be a red herring or could be just a really early indication that he is up to no good. So that's all the information I have so far. If I had to make a theory of what I think is going to happen, who I think murdered Roger from right now, it would be based on such little amount of information based on what I'll get in the rest of the story. But to just make a wild guess, I think he has a housekeeper who is named Miss Russell. Was that her name? Yes, Miss Russell. Miss Russell is the one who says she has knee problems. The day after Miss Ferrars died, she went up to Dr. Shepard and was like, hypothetically, is there any kind of poison that could kill someone without it being traced? Also, I'm having knee problems. Like, it was a weird whole little conversation. And people thought that Roger was going to marry Miss Russell before Miss Ferrars came in the picture. So she seems suspicious. Maybe she's up to something. Parker also seems suspicious. Maybe he's also up to something, the other housekeeper. Ralph is clearly up to something, but I think it's mostly just like trying to take Roger's money. Perhaps he killed Miss Ferrars because he didn't want her to end up getting Roger's money. He wanted to make sure he got it for himself. That's kind of what I'm seeing so far. Those would be my early predictions, but I'm unsure. I'm going to keep reading some more. I will give you an update as I get further in the story, develop some new theories, and I'm excited to see Hercule Poirot get on the case. Halfway through The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, and I feel like I got more information in the first section than I did in the stuff I've read since I last spoke with you. Not a ton has been happening. It's mostly just like getting Poirot to go see the scene of the crime, starting to talk to people, learning some people's alibis. I don't feel like my opinions have really changed, and I don't feel like I've learned anything that really changed the trajectory of the case so far. Maybe like some things. So Hector and Flora, seems like they might have something going on. They have an interesting relationship. Don't know what's going on there. There was a note found in the pond or something, like a gold piece of jewelry or something found in the pond that was inscribed with "from R, March 13th. So I'm like, Roger, Ralph, Raymond. There's a lot of people with names beginning with R. There's a parlor maid who's working in the house, and she has said that she's gonna leave her job. Apparently her and Roger got in a little scuffle the day prior, so it's like a little odd, but doesn't seem overly significant. It seems like Hector might be having money troubles. Maybe he was asking Roger for money as well. I don't know. There's some money that's missing. It kind of sounds like I'm saying a lot now, but I don't know. It just didn't feel like there was a ton of substantial information in this section. But now it's kind of gotten to a point where Hercule Poirot has gotten some information he doesn't like have it figured out, but he's like, I know that everyone in this room is hiding a secret from me, including the doctor that he's been working with, and the doctor whose perspective you're getting is like, oh, yep, he's right. So I don't know what that's going to be and what kind of secret the doctor's going to have, unless perhaps he killed someone, because there's been a lot of deaths, you know, just in the last couple of years, drug overdoses and whatnot. Maybe he killed someone, and maybe it was someone like non-incidental, like Miss Farrar's husband, because it has since come out that he was a bad dude. So I'm like, maybe he just like felt bad for her and overdosed him. It seems like it'll be something kind of insignificant like that. Nothing directly relating to the murder of Roger Ackroyd. Yeah, everyone's suspicious in some way though. Agatha Christie has built this story so that it could be anyone, you know? So I don't feel like I have a strong theory to propose at this point. I am halfway. I do like to try to come up with some theories at the halfway point, because I'll probably just finish the rest of the book at this point instead of giving another update. So I guess I should lock in some theories right now, because otherwise it's hard to know when to give a final guess before things are going to be revealed. So let's just go through all the facts that I know. The book starts with Miss Farrar's death before it gets to Roger. So that seems like there's something going on there that's significant. She dies, her husband died a year before, she was being blackmailed because she did kill her husband, and maybe the doctor helped her kill her husband, I don't know. She had recently just told Roger that she was being blackmailed. He seems to have a lot of connection points with potential love interests. So like he was secretly engaged to her, and it does seem like he loved her because he was telling Dr. Shepard this whole story and he was really distraught about it. But everyone thought he was going to end up with his housekeeper, Miss Russell, and now she's suspicious. There's something weird going on with her. And then there is Miss Cecil Ackroyd, his sister-in-law, who is widowed because his younger brother is dead. And I feel like she wants the money. Like she's mentioned being a little bit upset. They read the will and find out how much money everyone's getting. She's a little bit upset about that. And she's just kind of like an interesting character in general. Maybe she's up to no good. I guess Flora is her daughter, and Flora was gonna marry Ralph, and Ralph has just been missing this whole time since this happened. Ralph, we know, wanted the money from Roger, and he was talking to someone about that, and he was worried that things were going to change. So for some reason, Ralph thought Roger was going to take Ralph out of his will. It wasn't because he was engaged to Flora, because we know that Roger was supportive of that now. It could have been if he found out that Ralph was the one blackmailing Miss Farrar's, and it would make sense for him to be blackmailing her because we did see them together talking right before she died. So maybe that is the situation that's going on there. I'm confused about Flora's connection to Hector and what's going on there. Maybe they're just friends. Maybe there's something more. Hector also seems like he wants money from Roger. And then we have facts about the timeline and the circumstances of the death. We know that the doctor left his house at 9. Raymond says he heard Roger talking with someone at 9:30. Hector, I think, also later says he heard Roger talking with someone, but maybe one of those people are lying. And then Flora says she wanted to say goodnight to him at 9:45. Flora could be lying about that, but would she? She wants to protect Ralph. Everyone thinks Ralph did it. Because everyone thinks Ralph did it, I don't think he killed Roger. And so it's possible that she could be giving that alibi, saying she saw him at 9:45 because she knows that Ralph really did come see Roger for a minute maybe, and she wants to cover over that and be like, no, but I know he was alive after that happened, that would be possible. So the last we really know that he was alive is 9 o'clock because we were reading the doctor's perspective when we saw that. It also seems very likely and probable that whoever murdered him was someone he let in through the window. Why would he let in someone through the window? Why would someone come into the window? That would seem like a weird thing for someone to do. I don't feel like it'd be someone else who was in the house at the time, because why would he let them in from the window if he knew they were in the house? So it would be a visitor, which seems probable that maybe Ralph did come visit him. He had left the window open and then someone came in after that otherwise. Or someone from in the house went into the room to kill him, locked the door from the inside, opened the window to leave, and came back around and went back in the house. So I guess that doesn't rule out anyone that was in the house. There's also the situation where in the room there was this chair that was in the corner and it had been moved. Sometime after the police originally investigated the room and locked it back up, and then they came back and saw it again, the chair was moved. So someone was in the office between the times. I don't know why the chair would have been moved, but that seems like something important for some reason. Also, interestingly, Poirot asks the doctor to go visit the old people that so there's this parlor maid, right? And I said she's leaving her job. She had worked somewhere before, and Poirot sends the doctor 14 miles out of town to go talk to them to learn information about her. And so you're thinking like, oh, that's interesting. He wants to do that. After the doctor comes back and does that, he doesn't really learn any information on that trip. He finds out from Caroline that Poirot came and visited Caroline at the time and was asking Caroline a bunch of questions, and even asking questions about who the doctor had been seeing recently as patients. So it seems like Poirot set that whole thing up just because he wanted to learn some things about the doctor, probably from Caroline. And one of the thof the things that he learns is about how Miss Russell had come talking to him about her bad knee, which we don't really believe she had a bad knee. So all of those facts put together lead me nowhere. I can't say I'm feeling confident about anything. The only thing I feel is true is that Ralph is not the murderer, because everyone thinks Ralph is the murderer, and so therefore I don't think he is. I think it was someone else. Perhaps it was Flora. Perhaps it was Miss Ackroyd, the sister-in-law. Perhaps it was Hector for some reason. And perhaps it was someone who works in the house. I don't feel like it was someone who works in the house though. I feel like it wouldn't be that. So I suppose those are my main suspects at this point: Flora, Miss Ackroyd, and Hector. There's also Raymond, but I don't know much about Raymond. He was the secretary, and I just feel like he's not in the story a ton, so I don't have enough information gathered on him. And then if I have to guess who I think the blackmailer was, who was blackmailing Miss Ferrars, I think that was Ralph. So those are my guesses at this point. I'll keep reading. I might check in with you as I get further along, or I might just finish the book. I'm not sure, but you will find out in approximately 10 seconds. All right, so I did finish the book, and did I get anything right? I don't think so. I don't think I had a single theory right. I'll talk about this without fully spoiling the book for a minute in case you want to get a non-spoilery or less spoilery version of this, and then I'll go into spoilers for a bit at the end as well. Generally, just my review of this book, pretty good. Pretty good mystery. I had fun with this. It definitely hoodwinked me. I did not see it coming. It was a very complex mystery with a lot of suspects. I liked the writing style of it and the way the story flowed and the perspective that it was coming from and just how the mystery unfolded itself to you. Like I said, can't remember if I've read a Hercule Poirot story before, but I'm definitely familiar with him as a character from the movie adaptations, and I enjoyed his character in this story. He's just this quirky detective who has this funny way of working through things and pays attention to peculiar little details and uses unique tactics to find things out, which I find to be really fun. I'm not really someone who cares a whole lot about going through and like trying to read more Agatha Christie stories just because she's this like classic murder mystery author. I'm just not someone who reads a lot of classics in any genre really. I read some, but I don't go out of my way to read them most of the time unless I'm actually interested in them. So while I enjoyed this, I don't have this like feeling of a need to read more Hercule Poirot mysteries. Like maybe if I did this concept again in the future, I would do it for a video concept. I think that'd be a fun way to read some of them, but I'm not feeling any need to go do that really. For my rating of this book, I think I'm gonna give it a 4 star because, like I said, enjoyed the mystery. Didn't give a 5-star feeling, but was enjoyable nonetheless. As with all Agatha Christie's and many older books, there are some things that are definitely dated in here to look out for. One of the main things that I remember coming in this copy was like an anti-Semitic remark at one point. That's something I knew to expect because I just know that with Agatha Christie, like lots of racism in her stories. It's kind of like reading a Stephen King, like an older Stephen King book. You just know there's going to be things in there that are not to our modern understanding of society and what is acceptable to be published and what is not. So I think that's also part of why I'm like, I don't really care to like go and try to read a lot of Agatha Christie, but this was a fun little project and it was pleasantly surprising and a pleasantly good time. Now for jumping into some spoilers of what happened in this book and how very far off I was. So the explanation behind what happened in this story, the basic concept, right, is the murder of Roger Ackroyd. Who killed Roger Ackroyd? He was found locked in his room, stabbed in the neck. Who did it? Well, the explanation is pretty simple. It was the doctor, the main character who was telling me this story throughout the whole book. It was him. And there was one little inkling, one little thing that does end up being a clue later on that I caught very early in the story when he's first coming over, the doctor's first coming over to Roger's house for dinner that night. And he brings his case with him, like his briefcase, his doctor case. And the guy who opens the door for him even makes a remark about like, oh, you brought your bag. And he's like, yeah, I might have to like go see some patients after this, so I brought the bag. See, when that moment was talked about in the story, I thought, okay, lots of people have been dying. There's been some poisonings. I wonder if the person asking about it is going to rummage through the doctor's bag and get some poisons because he's going to end up being responsible for killing someone. That's what I thought that whole moment was significant for. Turns out that moment ends up being significant because the doctor uses the bag to hide a dictaphone, which ends up being an important thing too, because, you know, without getting into all of the frivolous details of what exactly happens in every specific explanation of the murder mystery, because there's a lot of little clues that Poirot pieces together. If you want to know all of them, I'm sure you can probably read about it on the Wikipedia page for this book. It's so old, there's got to be a million things online to read every single detail if you really want it. But the timeline was messy. And I was thinking that too as they were talking through the timeline and the alibis, is like, this is an older style story. Everyone's alibi is just built on what they say. If this person says, I was there at this time, I did this at this time, I was here, I saw this person, like there's nothing to prove any of that in these times. There's no cell phones to trace, there's no CCTV, like it's just whatever people say. And so there were many pieces of that where people were found to be lying about particular pieces or the timing was off. And one of the main things that was helping establish the time of death was people saying they heard him talking to someone at like 9:30, and it turns out that that was actually a recording that had been set to go off, that the doctor set to go off so that people would think they heard him speaking, that he was still alive at that time to cover up his tracks. He was already dead at that time. The doctor had already murdered him. Why did he murder him? Because the doctor was also the one who was blackmailing Miss Ferrars, and he had been collecting a lot of money from her. She did actually kill herself because she ended up getting so distraught in that whole situation. But then Roger Ackroyd was going to learn who the blackmailer was, the doctor, and he knew that Roger would just like ruin him because that's the kind of temperament that he had. And so he killed him. At the end of the book, Poirot gathers all of the suspects together before making this grand reveal. He talks through all the clues, the things he knows, the things that everyone is hiding. And he says that he's going to go to the inspector the next day with the information, but someone has a chance to like confess, I guess. And that's when it all comes out that it's him, when Poirot and him have a conversation and Poirot's like, you know, I'll let you choose what you want to do. He encourages sleeping pills for him. And I guess the book ends when you're in the doctor's perspective, and it sounds like he is also going to kill himself so that he doesn't have to go away to prison. Pretty clever that the main character was the suspect and that was able to slip under my nose. I will say that was the only perspective that I trusted, because when all these alibis were coming together and people were like, I was here, I did this, you read from his perspective, the doctor's, of what he did with Roger. And so I felt like that was the only thing we could truly trust. And it turns out we couldn't even trust that, because as explained at the very end of the story, he used little clever vague phrases in the way that he wrote that so that you would not catch on, but he also wouldn't necessarily be lying, I guess. The framing of this story is that he is writing about the story of working with Poirot. And so then he kind of breaks the fourth wall with you a little bit in those moments of like, yeah, I wrote it this way so that people wouldn't know. So I did not succeed in solving a classic murder mystery, but I still had a fun time with it. And I honestly thought that I might have a better chance of guessing this than I did a more modern mystery. The last book I did this with was Murder in the Family by Kara Hunter, and I actually did a pretty good job with that one, I think, and guessing what might be happening. At least I had some strong theories going on that were pretty close to the explanation of what happened in that one. I thought an older book I would have a better chance of guessing because I've probably seen a lot of books use these same style twists before over and over throughout the years, and I'd be able to recognize it and pick up on it. But I was wrong. I underestimated this book and it did beat me. I do think this is a fun concept that I would continue doing. So like I said in the last one, let me know down below in the comments if there are any other books that you think would be good candidates for me to do this with. So far, I have done a mixed media, more modern story. I've done a classic murder mystery. Let me know if there's any other types of stories that you think could be a good thing to test this with. And if you have read this book, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, you can let me know down below what you thought of it and if you were able to crack the case as well. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!